Hey guys, let's get more news about Warriors, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Dubs trade pitch swaps, Kuminga or Podziemski, picks for elite big to resurrect death lineup. The Golden State Warriors are well positioned to make the playoffs after a quality summer that they arguably won despite losing Klay Thompson, but home court advantage and a deep postseason push probably still require a star addition. The Dubs are attempting to make that deal with the Utah Jazz by acquiring 7-foot offensive powerhouse Lauri Markkanen via trade. Zach Lowe and Kevin Pelton of ESPN co-hosted the July 15 edition of the Low Post podcast, during which they took an in-depth look at a potential deal and whether it would be worth it for the Warriors. One of the things I most love about the idea of Markkanen on the Warriors is a Markkanen and Draymond Green frontcourt, Pelton said. That's the death lineup model. Pairing Green at center with a power forward who is a really dangerous shooter and scorer that has unlocked a lot of things for the Warriors. For context, The Athletic reported on Monday that Golden State brought a package of Moses Moody and several first-round picks, first-round swaps, and second-round picks to Utah in its most recent proposal. The Jazz, however, have asked for the bulk of young talent and capital the Warriors possess, including Moody, Jonathan Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski, along with picks, which has been a non-starter thus far for Golden State, league sources said, Shams Charania reported. The Dubs have been hunting an all-star caliber player to pair alongside two-time MVP Stephen Curry, and a swap for Markkanen is their last real chance to make that happen this summer. Let's say the middle ground ends up being the picks, salary filler and one of Kuminga and Podziemski, Lowe said. If that's the price, is that worth it for the Warriors? Should they do that? Are they good enough? Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz, left, drives the basketball against Brandon Podziemski of the Golden State Warriors, right, during an NBA game. The answer to Lowe's question is liable to be a moving target based on how healthy both the Warriors and the rest of the top of the Western Conference find themselves come playoff time. Postseason seedings and the subsequent matchups, which the NBA will determine based on regular season records, will matter as well. I think it's right on the borderline for me, Pelton responded to Lowe, after saying earlier in the podcast that the Oklahoma City Thunder are in a tier of their own atop the conference followed by a handful of talented groups one level below. I think that would put the Warriors into that second group of contenders for me, but I don't know that it would necessarily put them ahead of any of Dallas, Minnesota, or Denver in the West. For the so-called death lineup to function as it must, Curry also needs to play at an MVP caliber level. Beyond that, the Warriors will need a quality wing defender in the small forward spot. Their only two options are currently Kuminga or the hope of Andrew Wiggins returning to his 2022 form when his defense and rebounding helped Golden State capture its fourth title in an 8-year span. That reality brings up an interesting conundrum for the Dubs, assuming they can get the Jazz to agree to a Markkanen trade package that includes just one of Kuminga or Podziemski, perhaps along with Moody or perhaps not. Kuminga is the superior defender and athlete to Podziemski, though Podziemski is a better shooter and a quality playmaker alongside Curry in the backcourt. Warriors' Joe Lacob blames illogical GMs for making trades hard to pull off. The Golden State Warriors offseason has been an eventful one. Before free agency even officially began, the Warriors were named as potential landing spot for Paul George, and then after reported plans fell through with that, the Warriors bid farewell to longtime player Klay Thompson. And although the Warriors have done well in signing a few role players since then, reported trade talks with the Utah Jazz for Lauri Markkanen have seemingly reached an impasse, and Golden State owner Joe Lacob may be unhappy with the Jazz's asking price. Lacob, the majority owner of the Warriors, spoke about the team's offseason on a recent episode of the Athletic NBA show's Hoops Adjacent with David Aldridge and Marcus Thompson. Lacob opened up about Thompson's departure and his thinking going into the offseason, but the most interesting thing he mentioned may have been a slight call-out of illogical teams when trying to make trades. There are 3 ways to get better in this league: one is to draft, building through the draft, another is free agency, and the final one is trades, Lacob said. And trades are the hardest. It's very, very hard to pull off trades because everyone wants to prove these GMs, how smart they are. It's true. And they want to impress their owners, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But here's the problem, if I could share anything with the fans out there. It is that, they don't understand how hard it is and how illogical some of the parties on the other side are sometimes. Maybe we're illogical too, to some extent, but my point is it's just really, really hard to pull these things off. And everyone writes all this stuff and they have no idea what the other side's asking for in some of these things. After 4 championships from 2015 to 2022, the Golden State Warriors and their fans can take solace with all of the success and positive memories in that time period. However, the Warriors' championship window, if not already closed, is closing very, very fast. Stephen Curry and Draymond Green are 36 and 34 years old, respectively, and may not have enough around them in Golden State to win another title. And while it would logically make sense to trade both players and try to receive as many young players and draft picks as possible in return, no one can fault the Warriors for trying to still compete with both players under contract for the next few years. Therefore, the discussions the Warriors have reportedly had with the Utah Jazz to acquire All-Star forward Lauri Markkanen make a lot of sense. Markkanen, who is 7 feet tall, would seem to be a near-perfect fit next to Curry, the sport's greatest perimeter shooter, and Draymond Green, an extremely valuable versatile defensive leader. Grade the trade, pundit pitches Russell Westbrook deal to Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors need to put the stink of last season behind them. Their offseason has been largely successful on that front. Despite striking out on Paul George, losing Klay Thompson, and struggling to get a Lauri Markkanen trade across the finish line, the Dubs are in a good place. This is a better team than a season ago. DeAnthony Melton is the perfect plug-and-play option in Klay's old role, more or less. Buddy Hield can ramp up the three-point volume next to Stephen Curry, while Kyle Anderson is a winning player in virtually any context. His passing, defensive versatility, and occasional scoring bursts will improve the Golden State second unit. Plus, we are due for second-year leaps from Brandon Podziemski and Tracy Jackson-Davis. Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody are due for fourth-year leaps. The Warriors are the rare old contender with serious potential for internal growth. There's really a lot to be happy about in the Bay. Despite the myriad of positives, however, it can feel like the Warriors' current core has run stale. Steve Kerr doesn't have the same shine he once did. Klay's departure stings and it brings up new questions about the sustainability of the supporting cast around Steph, who won't remain a god-level offensive engine forever. The Warriors need a spark. What if that spark comes in the form of Russell Westbrook? Zach Buckley of Bleacher Report was tasked with proposing workable trades for all 30 NBA teams. For the Los Angeles Clippers, he suggested swapping Westbrook for the aforementioned Moses Moody, giving the Dubs a veteran backup point guard while infusing the Clippers' rotation with upside on the wing. There's merit, on some level, to planting late-career Westbrook next to the greatest shooter in NBA history. Using Russ for 15 minutes a night in a change-of-pace role, allowing him to attack downhill in 5-out, small ball lineups next to Steph might actually work on some level. Is he open for a niche role? Does he get along with Draymond Green for 82 games? Those are unanswered questions, but it's a worthy thought exercise. That said, there's simply zero chance in hell Golden State parts with 21-year-old Moses Moody to get this deal across the finish line. GM Mike Dunleavy Jr. has already expressed interest in extending Moody, who made progress last season en route to averaging 8.1 points and 3.0 rebounds on .462/.360/.785 splits in 17.5 minutes. Westbrook was ostensibly more productive in a greater workload for the Clippers, but he's a 35-year-old vet minimum player coasting on his reputation. Moody has a legitimate upward trajectory in a desirable archetype. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Russell Westbrook? Leave your opinion in the comments.